Right. In the interest of time, we're going to get started, and I'm sure additional folks will trickle in, but we want to make the best use of our time together. So welcome to the Sustainable Solutions Challenge webinar. We're so happy you're here and interested in learning more about this initiative. I'm Shana Horowitz. I'm part of the team at the Exchange who's been organizing and standing up this program. So thanks for joining us. So just to orient you to how we're going to use our time together today, here's a preview of our agenda. First, I'm going to give you a bit of context on the exchange. Then I'll pass things over to my colleague, Elif Mina, who's going to moderate a panel with several of our different challenge reviewers. Then Elif Mina will walk us through more details and specifics about the challenge. And then my colleague Wyatt is going to moderate a Q&A for us. We'll have ample time to answer questions live, but if you've already got a question that you're dying to make sure we get to, please feel free to add it to the chat and we'll kind of create a queue so that we can get through as many as possible in our time together. And of course, there'll be time for follow-up and we're reachable by email to continue the conversation as needed. So let's talk about the Exchange. The New York Climate Exchange is a new nonprofit organization, and we are on a mission to accelerate and scale climate solutions. And we do this by working with a range of partners from academia to community organizations, industry, and government, because we really believe that unprecedented inclusive collaboration is required to make real impact on climate. And we employ a really wide range of interventions from education and training to convening to tech incubation in order to help make this kind of progress and impact. And lastly, we deliver on this mission through our physical campus, which will be coming to Governor's Island in 2029. And that's going to provide a really unique physical environment to bring this work to life in the heart of New York City. And it's really what the challenge that we're here discussing today is focused on and what it's all about. So as I previewed just a moment ago, here at the Exchange, we're committed to a multi-stakeholder model and working collaboratively. Today, we have a network of over 40 different partner organizations working with us, from universities to global corporations to frontline groups serving communities to labor unions and cultural institutions. And we really think that represents the breadth of actors that need to be activated and engaged to work on climate. And the hub that we're designing on Governor's Island will really allow these different partners to be co-located as we drive forward the development of different climate solutions. So with an eye towards the areas with the biggest levers and opportunities for impact, our programming at the Exchange, which is already getting started. We're not waiting till 2029 to get started on that, as evidenced by the launch of this challenge just in the last month or so. We are primarily focused on the categories that you see on the left-hand side of this slide. So the built environment, its role in reducing emissions and helping us to adapt to a new climate reality, community resilience and health, so seeking opportunities for increasing the capacity for communities to thrive in the face of extreme weather and the myriad kind of physical and mental health impacts presented by the climate crisis. Financial solutions, so looking at the need for new financial instruments and innovations that factor in climate risk and enable us to deploy the capital needed at scale. Energy and carbon management, and then lastly, oceans. Oceans cover a huge proportion of our planet, and so understanding their role in climate change is key to securing our kind of collective future. And the way that we work at the Exchange allows us to make broad progress on these issues. So we employ the power of education, research, workforce development, tech incubation, even arts and culture. Our Climate Hub will be the physical embodiment of our approach. So when it opens in 2029, we'll have this living laboratory that fosters cross-sector collaboration and creates this enabling environment. Excuse me, my voice is going. And that's why we're so excited to bring you all into this process. So you can see a map of Governor's Island here, and this is the location of our future hub. We've got mass timber buildings. We're going to be adapting some historic buildings, but it is primarily a new build. We've got green infrastructure planned, so investments in landscaping, waterfront upgrades, climate resilient systems like solar and geothermal that will really be setting a new standard for urban sustainability. And the hub includes a convening center, research and education facilities, so labs, exhibition and demonstration spaces, classrooms, and it'll also have housing, which is quite unique. If you're a New Yorker and you've been to Governor's Island before, it's not everyone who gets to spend a night on the island. So we will actually have eventually housing for undergraduates, faculty, staff, and researchers, and then outdoor public spaces and public amenities across the campus. So that brings us to the Sustainable Solutions Challenge. And this invites you, folks who are in the room and beyond, to propose solutions that align with our mission and could enhance the campus design. So this is really a proving ground and an opportunity to test cutting edge solutions and really a commercial opportunity for innovators to deploy in a highly visible setting. So we take seriously our potential role as a customer for those of you applying to this challenge, but also as a partner in trying to popularize and kind of broaden the conversation around these topics and make it more visible and accessible to everyone here in New York, but also globally who's working on these related issues. And again, Eilif is going to talk us through a lot more specifics when it comes to kind of what we're looking for with the challenge and different parameters to keep in mind. But I just want to spend a moment talking about the different focus areas that we have for the challenge. So the first category is built environment and design, which focuses on areas like circular or carbon negative materials and coatings, air quality systems, and novel ways to foster a sense of health and well-being across the campus. The second category is infrastructure and resource efficiency, which includes opportunities across energy, water, and waste. Could include enabling energy independence on the island to different approaches for managing stormwater or converting waste into energy, and leveraging predictive analytics for building management, just to give you a sense of the diversity across that category. The third category is all about resilient ecosystems and landscape design, such as shading to combat extreme heat, measures to enhance biodiversity on the island, and approaches for emergency preparedness. And lastly, we have the wildcard category. Maybe you've got a concept that doesn't sit squarely within one of these predefined categories. Maybe you're looking at carbon capture, multimodal transit, or a new way to engage visitors and enhance their experience as they traverse the campus. We still want to hear from you, and so that's why there's this wildcard category. Before I hand it over to Eilif for our panel, I just want to acknowledge the incredible team who is engaged to bring our campus to life over the next several years. This challenge offers selected teams the opportunity to engage with experts from the team reflected here on this slide, and also the broader coalition of exchange partners and practitioners driving forward innovation in urban development. But it really is a world-class team, and I'm incredibly excited that we actually have a few folks represented on this slide with us here today to speak more. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Eilif Mina for our panel.
Thank you, Shayna. That was a great introduction. Let me see if I can unmute our panelists. Or I don't know if Sonia has to do that. I'm looking for them. So today we have Allison Crossley, Sigal Shamesh, and Chas Peppers. Allison joins us from Coming Group. Sigal and Chas are joining us from SOM. And we're so lucky to have all three of you here today. Thank you for joining us. Before we maybe get to the questions, I wanted to start us off briefly by asking each of you to introduce yourselves, maybe share a brief overview of your background, your experience, your current role, and what you do at work every day. Allison, do you want to start?
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. Um, as Elfmina said, I'm Allison Crossley, Sustainability Manager. I am with Coming Group. We are a construction project management integrated service company, the fancy way to say owners reps. So that's kind of my acting role, is to support the exchange with all of the designers. Specifically geared towards sustainability. So I try to support, collaborate, and listen really on with Segal and Chase on what designs they're bringing forward and how that really integrates into the values that we just saw from the exchange. So that is my role. Did I answer the
Yeah,
question?
that's
Okay,
perfect.
cool.
Sigal, you want to go next?
Yeah, hi everyone. Good morning. My name is Sigal Shemish. I'm a sustainability lead with SOM, working closely with Chaz. My role in the project really is to make sure that we're integrating sustainability in our design approaches as holistically and as closely as possible. So I coordinate very closely with the architects and mechanical engineers, our landscape architects, our civil engineers as well, to ensure that one, we're designing correctly, and also two, that we're meeting the aspirational certifications that we have for the project as well, which are very aggressive and challenging, and we're of course up for that challenge, but really are going to push the project forward. And I'm a mechanical engineer by background, so I always like to kind of cross collaborate and make sure that we're incorporating as much as we can in many different disciplines. So happy to be here.
Thank you.
My name is Chas Peppers. I am an architect by trade here in New York. Currently, I am the leader for research and innovation at SOM. And you can see my title there is Venture Architect, which is somewhat of a self-made up name. Basically, my role is to not only support the research that we do here at SOM, all of which is headed towards more sustainable solutions for the built environment, but also we find ways to partner with outside groups, a lot of startups into new materials or whatever the case may be, and help accelerate their businesses as well. So we're looking for, ways to bring our own innovations and our own research into the field, but also looking at strategic partnerships and alliances with others outside. I think this is a great initiative. I'm very impressed that the Climate Exchange is hosting this, and I'm very excited to see what people bring forward with.
Yeah, thank you so much. Maybe we can get started by just talking briefly about kind of the current state of practice, trying to incorporate sustainable innovations into buildings. I know it's not always easy. I think, there's a lot of permitting, a lot of things that, tied to regulations and things. So the built environment is often seen as kind of a lagger in innovation. So I was curious if you guys could share a little bit about your take on what's going on these days, any opportunities, any barriers that you see when you're trying to integrate these sustainable innovations into buildings or projects that you're working on. Maybe, I don't know who wants to start. I feel free to jump in or I can call on someone.
Yeah, I can start. This is a great question, and I think it's one that our team at the exchange is really driving towards having integrated conversations at every point. I think Segal mentioned her job is to like cross-cut across engineering, landscape, and architecture, and they're doing a great job. But I think having the conversation of what are the innovations out there and how to integrate them into your timeline and your budget is really, really difficult. I think we're succeeding with energy management for sure on geothermal and the different technologies that we're deploying within our energy management systems. I think healthy materials are also one that we're really excited to integrate and really push during our design development phase. So I'll stop there and then let others answer.
Yeah, it's always challenging for what we kind of refer to as first of a kind products to get integrated into buildings, because it's as you mentioned, there's a lot of code issues. There's insurability issues around these things.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that institutions like the Climate Exchange are, open to having these conversations with everyone to actually get first of a kind products, materials, whatever the case may be, into building solutions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we don't know what we don't know, right? So I think that I think the reason for this challenge too is so that we become aware of more of what's out there. Of course, we have a fairly good handle of different technologies and different approaches, depending on scale, typology of building, location, things of that sort, right? But this really just allows us to broaden our perspective of what's possible, right? And being able to understand maybe something can be done in a, less expensive way that we were originally thinking, and also allows us to meet our goals more efficiently and more easily, excuse me.
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious personally, what kind of excites you guys most about sort of when you think about innovation or sustainability? Those are big, catch-all words, I think. But obviously, maybe one thing comes to mind when you first think about it. And is there something that particularly you find interesting based on your background, or something that you hope gets incorporated into this project that you're pushing for?
Well, I'll jump in with this. I will say that,
Mhm.
and I think Allison mentioned earlier, we've made a lot of ground with the energy management solutions, which is to say that from a carbon perspective, the operational side of things has made a lot of good progress. But what excites me now is the number of initiatives I see and startups I see in the embodied carbon side, which is in the material innovation and whatnot. So I would like to see some exciting new materials that we haven't really seen in other built work start making their way into projects, and this is a good opportunity for something like that.
Yeah, definitely. The material space is really exciting.
Sigal, do you want to go? I know I already have mine. Um, I think anything mushrooms, the the mycelium innovation has been coming through, and actually this week SOM sent through a light fixture that I was like, yes, please. I think I will take it back though to like kind of a broader approach of we want to make sure that any innovation that we're incorporating feels relevant and seamless in design for the urban development. And I think the innovation that we're bringing with mass timber is the one that I feel like, even though I'm like all about the mushrooms, I think mass timber in an urban setting hasn't been done like we're doing it. And so I think that's what I'm most excited about is going through the permitting process, going through showing the New York that you can do mass timber safely and on 4 stories or more, and kind of changing the stigma of the industry. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the healthy material. I'm also looking at some of the questions in the chat. I think I see people talking about like healthy buildings, healthier buildings, right? That's absolutely a crucial aspect to what we're the materials that we're looking at. I mean, one of our goals is to have 90% reduction in red list ingredients, or rather 90% of our building products don't have any red list ingredients. And if you're not familiar with the red list, it's a list of like 20 plus ingredients that are just really bad for us to be breathing in and be exposed to in the built environment. Some of them are like pretty typical ones: formaldehyde, heavy metals, phthalates, BPA, things of that sort that surprisingly are still in our building products. One example is insulation that still has formaldehyde in it, right? And so that's something that we're actively looking into. I mean, Allison just mentioned, right? She was looking through a list that we put together of alternative materials, insulation made from something that's an alternative to the insulation that we're looking at with formaldehyde, which we're not allowed to have. So healthier materials for sure is something that we're focused on. I mean, I think there's no one focus, right? We have to have a holistic approach. That means that we're considering everything, right? Like somebody mentioned battery storage and microsystems. We've considered that. We've looked at fuel cells. We're looking at how do we effectively distribute air, right? Is that just through the use of chilled beams? Do we have FCUs? Do we have something else that we can potentially look at? Do we have some sort of air cleaning device that we're also looking at? So we're looking at a variety of different ways. We really have kind of the arms out, and we're branching out to understand what are the ways that we can achieve our goals and still, and keep budget in mind as well, but really enhance kind of the trajectory of where we're going. And that's not just any one thing. It's looking at everything at the same level. So it's a lot of different considerations.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's, a lot of different considerations that you want to take into account, and it's difficult to incorporate them all. So it becomes a question of which ones are you going to prioritize on what specific project. And I think sometimes there are tough decisions there. Um, so maybe I want to end with maybe two questions if we have time, or one, but as Allison mentioned, we are trying to build a large scale mass timber project here. So I'm curious, how you think this project might be pushing the envelope a little bit on what's possible, or how do you think that projects like this one might be influencing development trends across New York, or are there opportunities for this kind of project to influence development trends more broadly in other urban areas? And how does change really happen? Is it project by project? And I think we want to push the boundaries here, as Sigal was mentioning, with this project to be kind of an example. And I would love to maybe speak a little bit about how you think that happens in the industry based on your experience. Otherwise, maybe you can also answer specifically what you're looking for as a reviewer in this challenge. Um, healthy materials, mushrooms, the non-chemicals or non-hazardous chemicals. But how do you, and maybe Chas, this is a great question for you to answer because you work a lot with, smaller startup companies. What are you looking for when you're evaluating a company to be incorporated into a project? And how do you, make some of those decisions?
Yeah. So I'll start with the mass timber piece first and then answer the second one right afterward.
Yeah.
I think one of the opportunities that this project has as it relates to mass timber, and is purely coincidental, is the site itself, which is to say on Governor's Island, where you have no roads or no access. A lot of it will have to be probably, fabricated off-site and brought in. But that process, mass timber really lends itself to prefabrication. It's a natural material for that. And I think a lot of new innovation needs to be brought forward in that space And this is a great opportunity for some of that to kind of make its way. And I think that will help bring mass timber into more urban environments and into the market broadly. The second thing is, what are we looking for? What do I particularly look for? I look for new inventions, whether they be in the material space or just anywhere else in the AEC industry, that really have a quick to market, or they have a solution for, you know, the needs that are now, that they're not looking at something that's maybe on a 10-year horizon, but is really looking at something that we can implement in the next 3, 4, 5 years. And so I think that
Mhm.
is really kind of critical. And of course, beyond just the sustainability or the carbon side of things, it's also the technology. The way that we build buildings is changing as well. So it's also embracing the new technology into how we build buildings as well.
Absolutely. Allison or Segal, any thoughts on either of those questions?
I think for me, it's anything like I'll probably be looking for anything that makes it easier, like makes our job easier. So, you know, take the example of insulation that I had before, right? If it's an insulation product that, you know, I don't know if somebody on the line has an insulation product, but just as an example, right? If it's something that is competitive in terms of thermal performance, thermal resistivity, is also very low in body carbon, basically like something that's hitting a number of different variables that we're trying to aim for, right? So the example of insulation has good thermal performance, right? That meets our requirements for our energy reduction goals, is low embodied carbon, that meets our goals for reducing embodied carbon more than 20%, which we're exceeding that. Also doesn't have a red list ingredient. Also is maybe inexpensive to produce. Also is a regional material, maybe it's locally produced, you know, in Connecticut, for instance. So I think something that's hitting, and of course I think that's maybe a little too much to ask for maybe one product, but I think thinking of products or technologies that are hitting on more than one areas of function. And somebody noted in the chat their role is like encouraging younger audiences to engage, right? So I think sustainability showcasing is another aspect of this, where we want to be able to have a product that's functional, or have a technology that's functional for our building and is able to help us meet our goals, but also can be a great showcase, and maybe primarily a showcase. I think the kind of the whole point of the challenge is to showcase your technology or showcase your product, so that it can be replicable for other buildings in New York City or globally, right? So I think that is, you know, hitting on a number of different factors. I think it's what I'll be looking at.
Thank you. Allison, 30-second speed round.
Okay. I think I'm looking at more the why. I think the exchange were really intentional. I think it's been really like our team is going after all these certifications, and not one time has our team mentioned those certifications, because it is our kind of our foundation, but it's not our guide point, as essentially, because I think the exchange is bringing our values. And so I think any innovation in alignment with what the exchange is trying to do, is what Shayna went through earlier, is what I'm really looking for. Telling the story of why this really makes sense in the urban environment. Period.
Awesome. Yay. Well, thank you guys so much. I very much appreciate you taking the time this morning to join us here. I think we will close the panel here just so that we can give a brief overview of the challenge and then open it up for Q&A. I know there's already lots of Q&A in the chat, and my colleague Wyatt is gonna take us through the Q&A portion in a little bit. So Segal, Chas, Allison, thank you so much. Your welcome to stick around and join us for the remaining half hour, or you're welcome to drop off depending on your meetings and things. So um, I think we'll move to a short overview of the challenge, just to reiterate some of the things that have been posted online, and then from there we'll move to the Q&A. Think we can probably go to the next slide here. Okay, so to pick it up again where Shayna left us off, she talked through all the different categories that we're looking at. And in addition, kind of how what Allison was mentioning, what we're looking for is really diverse solutions, technologies, materials, furnishings, and software that enhance our design, but that also fit within our project timeline, which I'll get to in a second. So enhancing the design and fitting within the project timeline. We also, alluded to the regulations and things a little bit earlier. We need proposals that align with existing New York City building and fire codes. We can do some special testing and permitting review on a case by case basis, but broadly speaking, our timeline does not allow for us to apply for new building and fire code permitting and things like that. So a smooth regulatory pathway. We're also looking for solutions that seamlessly kind of complement the existing design and infrastructure. So we have solar, we have geothermal. We're looking for solutions that would enhance these things, that would complement these things. We're not looking to now abandon solar and move to like wind energy or something. So seamless integration. We're a little bit of what Chas was saying earlier. We're looking for market-ready solutions essentially that are beyond R&D. They don't have to be fully commercialized at the moment. We can be the first customer, but they have to be deployment ready. They cannot be at the research phase where you're testing things out. And then this is something that Allison mentioned, a tangible impact. We're looking for companies that are aligned with the mission of the exchange. And we're specifically looking for companies that have a clear vision for how their offerings improve sustainability. It's not just something innovative. We really do want to integrate innovations that focus on sustainability and that are aligned with our mission. We can move to the next slide. Yeah, so in terms of what your solution will have the opportunity to do if it's selected, if you are selected as a finalist, we will give you the opportunity to showcase your innovation. Our project is all about demonstrating things for the first time. So we want to showcase and demonstrate that these things are possible so others follow our lead. And so we want to showcase your innovations at a high visible, globally recognized climate hub on Governor's Island in New York City. You'll also have the opportunity to engage with many people like Allison, like Sigal, like Chas, like with policymakers, industry leaders, other researchers through our Climate Week 2025 programming, and also other public events we do through our programming as the exchange in general. And obviously, no building gets built by one person, so you'll have to you'll have the opportunity to collaborate with many experts and explore an opportunity to incorporate your technology in a real world application. The challenge timeline, we launched it at the end of February. So throughout this month, March, and next month, April, we are accepting submissions. Today is our first info session. We have another info session mid-April, which is the same content as today. So if you join today, it'll just be a repeat of today. And then May 1st is the deadline. So May 1st, 5 p.m., you've submitted your application. In May, we are going to do an initial submission screen just to look at compatibility and feasibility and those like regulatory things that I talked about. And then we'll pass along the applications to our reviewers to evaluate, the pros and cons and the different, variables that had been mentioned by Sigal that we're looking for. And around August, I think we will start to engage with some folks who we think are in the finalist pool. We want to feature our finalists during Climate Week 2025, which is in September. And then, there'll be ongoing sort of project development from this September all the way until September 2029, because that's when our campus opens. So we are right now in the design development phase. Our construction begins in Q3 2026. So in a year and a half, we begin construction. And then we have a 3-year construction period, and Q3 2029 construction ends. So from this September all the way until end of construction, we'll be able to engage with all the folks that we want to plan to incorporate into our campus. I saw a question in the chat about, will we have drawings? Will we have access to, more detailed information? I think that ongoing project development is where, we'll get into the details and the minutia of all of those things with the people that we feel like are a good fit for this project. The steps to apply, there's an info package. So if you go on our website, NewYorkClimateExchange.org, Sustainable Solutions Challenge, there's an info package. You download the info package. There's application instructions in that info package and a bunch of appendices. So you review the appendices, you read the application instructions, and then there's a application form that you can submit, that I can talk about what the contents are in the following slide. So our info package has the application instructions. It has detailed examples of what we're looking for in each category. This is just to give you a sense of what's on our radar, but feel free to propose something that's not on there as well. Context on Governor's Island is one appendix. Appendix 3 is a sustainability overview, talking about what we're currently achieving, all the certifications. Appendix 4 is frequently asked questions. Appendix 5 is evaluation criteria. Appendix 6 is the engineering system details, which includes energy, obviously, and water and things like that. Appendix 7 is the fact sheet that we have. So anything that you have a question about, I promise you it's either in the fact sheet or the FAQ or in one of these other appendices. And then Appendix 8 is some renderings of the current design just to get you inspired. These renderings are also available on our website and also behind me. The application instructions, and then the application form itself. I think on the next page we talk about the sections of the form. So it's meant to be a brief application form. So we don't want it to be a huge, city RFP style thing. The first section, very easy, just applicate information, your contact details. Section 2, just a little bit of info about your specific product or service or whatever it is. Section 3 is that technical and feasibility detail I was talking about, the regulatory, feasibility of your project, specifically in the New York City context. Section 4 is a little bit of this impact and scalability, and what do you think is the impact of your product? And then Section 5 is just optional. So if you have certain PowerPoint decks that you already use with investors and things, you can attach these things. Or if you have renderings of your product, you can attach these things. Or if anything off the shelf that you want to attach, you can. And then you just sign it and acknowledge it and then submit it. You can open it and read through it and copy paste it into a Word document if you want to work on it, but I think you have to submit it all in one time. So maybe you work on it in a Word doc and then you copy paste everything in and press submit. And I'll pass it on to my colleague Wyatt now to take us through the Q&A.
Great. Thank you so much, Shayna, Elifmina, and our wonderful reviewers who served on the panel. There have been some questions in chat, and we're going to address them not in order, but alternating between us. So I'd like to ask Shayna to go first.
Sure.
There was a question in the chat. Is the idea to only have startups and researchers as prime applicants, or will joint venture applicants be considered?
Thank you, Wyatt. So the short answer is sure. Joint venture applicants can absolutely be considered. For us, the emphasis is on whether the team, whether it be one company or a couple of companies or individuals coming together to create a new joint venture, has the capacity to develop something that is truly implementation ready. So we are agnostic as to whether it's a venture-backed startup, a nonprofit group, a design firm, a group that is coming together again to create a unique joint venture specifically for this challenge. That's fantastic. So open to all.
Thank you so much. I will take the next question. There was no mention of battery energy storage system or microgrids. Will we consider these technologies? Please feel free to apply these technologies, but be very cognizant in the application to be aware of the specific to New York City regulations that these sort of technologies need to be approved by. Specific to the Fire Department of New York, certain battery energy storage systems need a certificate of approval, and I recommend looking into that as well as additional regulations needed to own and operate and install battery energy storage systems in the New York City region. I'm going to ask Elifmina a question.
Yep.
How set in stone are the design of the chill beams, VAVs, and FCUs? And can we propose, this is the applicant, an alternative solution? I'm not as familiar with these acronyms, so I apologize if I'm...
Yeah, I personally am not, and I know Sigal is still here, so I don't know if she wants to jump in with her engineering background, but essentially for those in the industry, we are in design development phase right now. So we started design development on March 3rd. So or Allison, I think, can speak to this as well, but essentially, if you are familiar with the building industry, anything that can change in design development, we can change, but anything that is already set by the time you start design development, we cannot change. Allison, I don't know if somebody can unmute Allison, maybe she can add a little bit of more context. Or Sigal, I don't know.
Yeah, it was can you repeat was it the question about the VAVs and the FCUs? Okay, yeah. So it's a good question. I think we're trying to implement as many chill beams as possible. It's a very energy efficient solution. What we're trying to do is also decouple conditioning and ventilation. So that's part of the chill beams and FCU approach. I don't think we currently have any VAVs. It's a pretty intensive approach, but we're welcome to any alternative solutions. I mean, right now, where we have a set approach, we have a trajectory of what we've kind of discussed and talked about during the schematic design phase. But if you have a solution that's way better and something we haven't heard of before and is going to be maybe even less expensive than what we're thinking about, or maybe fewer changes to the design, happy to discuss it and consider it. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for the response. I'll take the next question. It was asked, is this meant to be specific to New York City only, or can it be scalable to New York State and beyond? This is specifically for implementation within our hub on Governor's Island, but the ideal solutions would be those that have transformative potential for the built environment globally. So those align with the New York City's New York Climate Exchange's mission of scaling and promoting climate solutions. And so please, if you have a solution that both is adaptable to be used within our hub on Governor's Island, but also would have a transformative impact elsewhere, we encourage you to apply. Shayna, to direct a question to you, do we have a specific number of projects we're planning to move forward, or does it depend on proposals received?
Yes, sure. So the answer here is that it depends on the proposals that we've received. We've got these 4 different categories. We're not being prescriptive in terms of committing to moving forward with a minimum or maximum number of applicants. We really want to see what comes through the door and what fits within the different opportunities that we've outlined with the hub.
And Shayna, maybe you and I can take the next one together. Who is on our review committee to evaluate submissions? And Elifmina as well. There are people from among our partnership network and those who are involved in promoting transformative solutions within the built environment. So what we mean by that is academics who are on the forefront of investigating what are the current state of innovation and what are the next phases of implementation for solutions that are coming out of our partner academic institutions, as well as others that I will leave Shana and Elifmina to illuminate.
Sure. Yeah, so just to take a quick step back here, there's a kind of multi-phase review process that we have planned. So the core team at the Exchange and the project team, folks like Sigal and Allison who are still with us, will be doing an initial pass at all applicants to, again, check for feasibility and alignment. And what for the subset of applications that make it through that initial review, we'll then be sharing those applications with our many different reviewers aligned to their specific areas of focus. So as Wyatt alluded to, we've got academic kind of researchers and leaders who are on the forefront of R&D in some of these spaces. We've got practitioners, so people who are in charge of managing similarly sized and scoped hubs and facilities of this type. We've got investors, so folks who are actively investing in and partnering with different startups across these innovation areas. And we believe that kind of cross-sector diverse perspectives will give us a really kind of full-fledged picture of how to consider these applications, and also can provide valuable feedback for folks who are applying.
And if you check out our LinkedIn, we've done some posts where we've tagged all the companies that are represented in our reviewer kind of group. So you could take a look there as well.
Thank you so much. I'm going to address one of these questions. Will we have access to any pre-operation assumptions around energy consumption and single line drawings to see how the campus will be powered? Firstly, all information about the campus is going to be shared in the information package. So if you haven't had an opportunity to review that, I very much encourage you to do so. And then secondly, we are in the design phase and we will be moving forward to think about implementation after this challenge with the selected companies. I hope that answers your question. And I think we're nearing the end of questions. So I'm encouraging everyone to continue adding them to the chat, and we can continue answering. We have a few general, but there's one other. What are our funding sources for this campus? Shana, would you be comfortable answering this one?
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to. So just a quick kind of history lesson here on the origin story of the New York Climate Exchange. So we emerged out of a competitive process hosted by the City of New York for the opportunity to develop a climate solutions center on Governor's Island. And the vision that the city had was that they would be contributing a portion of the capital funds to help make this development possible. So the city itself is a funder of the capital portion of our organization. And then we've received a number of philanthropic contributions. So Bloomberg Philanthropies is a supporter of ours, the Simons Foundation. Those are our two kind of largest supporters to date. And we are in an active kind of capital campaign moment ourselves. So we'll be adding to that list of donors and supporters as we near the kind of breaking ground for this project.
There were two other questions regarding to the current stage of Liggett Hall. Allison, do you mind if I ask you to address these?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I saw you repaste them in, and I was waiting to get back to him. So the question was, are there any plans to add insulation in Liggett Hall? Is overclad an option? Is the facade landmarked? Or does New York Climate Exchange have interest in maintaining the existing wall as facade? So these are all great questions. These are all tricky questions, but yes to insulation to Liggett. We are using passive house principles, and insulation is kind of a landmark for that certification. So yes to that. Overclad is not an option. It's a historic building and we are keeping it as such. So the existing facade will be maintained, and we'll have to do some restoration there, but yeah, overclad is not an option. Geothermal is not listed as a part of the mechanical systems for Liggett Hall. Is there a logistical challenge preventing this? Any consideration to add it? Great question. We have developed past geothermal was on the docket for Liggett, but we, through our kind of energy analysis as well as cost, determined that other mechanical systems were better for Liggett, as opposed to the new builds, which will have geothermal running through them. So yeah, it was I guess researched and decided that it wasn't the best solution for our campus.
Thank you so much, Allison. Shayna, what is the goal of the costing section of this application?
Sure. So for that, we're trying to get a ballpark sense of how much it would cost to integrate whatever it is you're proposing into the final campus, both initial outlay of expenses, as well as ongoing maintenance considerations. So the more information that we have, the better. We recognize that this is preliminary, of course, and we're not going to be holding folks to exact numbers or figures, but it's a way for us to start to better understand what the path to actually integrating this in a meaningful way in the campus would look like, and what kinds of categories of expense we need to think about. So the expectation is not that the applicant is covering that wholesale. It's really about trying to understand the costs and how that factors into the overall project, as well as being able to maintain any systems or integrations for the long haul.
There was a recent addition in the chat, another question along the same lines. So I think if Shannon makes sense to keep going, is what is the possible fund size specifically so that applicants can use that to scope the work and their application?
Yeah, so I'd say there's no prize money attached to this challenge, right? This challenge is an opportunity to sort of be in the pool of potential sources of innovation for the hub. So in that sense, anything that you propose we should be able to have a clear understanding of what the costs are for that. And then we would discuss on a kind of case-by-case basis with the applicants as they proceed through the process, what some of those considerations look like. So there's not a specific figure in mind, and it definitely would vary greatly depending on if we're talking about, an interior material for the building versus a transit system we're looking to implement on the island. So the more information we can have from you, the better, but there's not a specific number to name at this time.
And I think just responding to the most recent question, thank you again for adding them in the chat, is would the venture share the cost? Again, there is no cost to apply or participate in this specific challenge. It is to surface the potential innovations that we can integrate into the campus. And the specifics of that contract is not defined at this time, and it's something that can be explored further after this challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you again for your questions.
Yeah, just to put a fine point on that, you should think of the exchange as a potential customer for the types of products and services that you're proposing here.
Mina, there's another question from Ben Silverman that I think we can ask. Are there any non-landmark existing buildings on the project?
Non-landmark existing buildings. I'm pretty sure, and Allison, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure all the historic buildings on Governor's Island are landmarked. So to that extent, I don't think at the project. I mean, I think if this is about the overclad issue, like we also sometimes like to demonstrate things like on a little demo wall or something. So I think we can't put that on the entirety of Liggett, but if there is something that we feel is exciting and that is pushing the boundaries that are currently in place for adaptive reuse that we want to highlight, we have demo spaces and exhibition spaces in our new build project that maybe we can showcase that material in a different way. So I mean, I would encourage you if you have the time to still submit your application. Um, and we can see if there's a way to, showcase the material if we think it is something that is really pushing the envelope. No pun intended. Just kidding. The building envelope.
Yeah,
Well,
I would agree. I think the important part to note is that Ben, if you have a product that is overclad and it needs to go in the existing building, that adaptive reuse, that's just another level of stakeholder engagement that our project doesn't have any issues with doing. Because I think this is all innovation is all about having the conversation. And so please like submit your product and we're willing to go through that process. Especially as Elifmina said, that if it's something that's really scalable and within the urban setting and we can demonstrate that, then we'd love to like hear from you.
thank you so much both. There's two other frequently asked questions that I would like to address. Firstly, can you submit more than one proposal if you have more than one potential solution? Yes, we actually encourage it. Can you retain the intellectual property associated with your solution? Absolutely. However, we do maintain the right to evaluate, review, and discuss your proposal for the purposes of this open challenge. So with that being said, we have 1 minute left in the time. I want to move forward and highlight some key takeaways and reminders on the next 2 slides. But please feel free to reach out after this webinar with any additional questions. We will have an email up at the end and also on the webpage. So as a few reminders, this challenge is open to companies globally. You do not need to be based in New York City or in New York State. There is no cost to apply. We will announce the finalists during Climate Week later this year in 2025. And then the finalists will be working with the exchange on a rolling basis to explore the next steps for campus integration. Application deadline is on May 1st at 5 p.m. EST, at which point the application will close. I encourage you to apply before that date so that if there are any difficulties with the application, that your application is safe. Please feel free to contact us at ssc@newyorkclimateexchange.org with any questions, clarifications, or any ways that we can help you and your application. And lastly, please be sure to check out our webpage and the webpage for this challenge at Sustainable Solutions Challenge at the New York Climate Exchange website. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time to learn about this project, listen to our reviewers, and ask your questions. We will be sharing the recording of this webinar on our webpage. Please feel free to review if you have any specific questions about this. And again, reach out